Valeria Rivera, and I'll be moderating today's session. Our goal at Study in the USA is to assist international students like you in finding your dream school and connecting you with the right institution. We're so happy you can join us today for our session, Empowering Your Educational Choices, Insights from QS CEO Jessica Turner. You may know us from joining us. We know that many of you are joining us from many parts of the world, so let's kick things off with a really fun note. Drop your country's flag emoji in the comments and let's see how global our audience is today. Today, we have an amazing opportunity to speak with Jessica Turner, the CEO of QS. Founded in 1990, QS Quacquarelli Simmons has become the leading global provider of specialist higher education, career information, and solutions. Jessica has been a pivotal force at QS, steering it toward new heights with her visionary leadership. Under her direction, QS has expanded its influence, helping over 2,000 of the world's leading higher education institutions. QS is committed to enhancing educational opportunities and provides effective tools and data to students, empowering them to make informed decisions at every stage of their educational journey, from first degrees to executive level education. By joining today's live session, you'll gain direct access to exclusive insights from a global leader in educational rankings and career solutions. This is a unique opportunity to learn firsthand about the trends shaping global education, understand what factors you should consider when choosing a university, and get advice tailored to your educational and career aspirations. Whether you're just starting out your university search or looking to advance your career with further studies, this session will equip you with valuable knowledge to navigate your options effectively. So Jessica, welcome. We're super thrilled to have you with us today. And to start us off, can you please share a little bit about your journey to becoming CEO at QS?
Well, thanks, Valeria, and thank you. Really appreciate that really warm introduction. And I think for me, it really did start with experiences as an international student as well. So I'm Australian, and I decided when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my first degree to really pursue what it was that was most interesting to me at high school. So I chose to study maths, and I went to university and pursued something that meant that I was really interested and I could do well at doing that. My first job and my early career I spent as a management consultant, and I built a lot of the sort of skills and experience working firstly in Australia, but then around the world, understanding, how the strategic decisions are really made with evidence and data in big businesses. And then I decided that actually I needed to do something broadening, and I wanted to see another part of the world. And I applied for a graduate degree, and I did my graduate degree in the US at the Harvard Kennedy School. I studied public policy, and that was a great way of understanding not just how corporations worked and how businesses worked, but how governments, which are really a vital part of that ecosystem, really affect people's lives. And I think that was a really rich experience for me. I then, after some more time as a consultant in various parts of the world, transitioned to working for a global corporation. I worked for Thomson Reuters, and I led strategy functions first, and then operations teams, sales teams, marketing teams, and some really large-scale transformation programs. And it was really that mix of experiences in different countries, in different contexts, that means that now in my role, I've had the experiences that I know quite a lot about what works and what doesn't work in building businesses and growing businesses. So I've got a bit of a toolkit to rely on. So in my role now, it's pretty diverse as a CEO. You see a lot of different situations, a lot of different challenges and opportunities. But I feel as if the range of experiences I've had and countries that I've worked in has really prepared me for being able to think about with the team what are the kind of solutions that we could put in place.
Well, thank you for that. I love hearing about other fellow international students, and your story is really inspiring. So, as a follow-up to that, what do you think is the most rewarding part of your role as the CEO of QS?
Well, it's definitely the people. We have 800 individuals all around the world in 25 different countries, and we serve universities in actually over 80 countries. And it's a group of people who are really passionate about higher education and the opportunity that brings. And so leading this team is absolutely fantastic. We're always looking at what we can do better, and we're really trying to create that mission-driven environment where we know that we're having a really positive impact and that we're doing something that can help the futures of many, many millions of motivated people, all around the world.
Well, that's amazing. I love hearing about the organization's passion for higher education. And on that note, can you elaborate on how QS evaluates universities and what sets your ranking system apart from your competitors?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our methodology is holistic, and we analyze a really extensive array of data points. So we've got tens of millions of data points that we use to put together our rankings. And what sets us apart, I think, is that we have a commitment to considering not just the academic progress of an institution, but also how it's achieving real world outcomes and how sustainable it is. So last year in 2023, we released our 20th anniversary of the World University Rankings, and we made some changes. We introduced new metrics around sustainability, employment outcomes, and also the International Research Network. And that reflected the dedication that we have to aligning our evaluation and our metrics to what really matters to students. Students are really interested in employability and increasingly interested in sustainability. For sustainability, I think that the affiliation that I have to the universities I've been to and that anybody has to the alma mater that they've studied at is really one that lasts for a long time. And students really want to see an alignment between their values and the values of the university that they're going to attend and the place they'd like to study. So at QS, we engage with millions of students every month, and we can see that that's becoming increasingly important. Our last survey showed that 79% of students thought that they really expected that the university that they're applying to would be taking concrete steps in reducing their carbon footprint, for example. So that's really important. That's why we've included that in our university rankings. But that's only a part of the picture. Our rankings also include measures of research impact, and that's based on the citations for the faculty at the university, measures of internationalization, and we look at that with the proportion of international students and international faculty, but also the reputation of the university. And we have insights from 100,000 international employers, 140,000 international academics, that really enables us to understand how universities are perceived around the world. So when we think about employer reputation, we're talking about the perception that hiring managers have and HR professionals working in organizations around the world, and how they reflect on the skills of the graduates who they're recruiting from those universities. And that helps to understand, how well are universities preparing students for the global workforce. Then when we look at academic reputation, that helps to understand the quality of the research, the resources that go into research, the opportunities for collaboration, and how engaged that university is with the community. So all of those things together come together, and that's the QS rankings, and that gives a really holistic snapshot. It's not just the academic excellence, but it's the contribution that a university makes to society and to the futures of the graduates from that institution.
Well, I love to hear that breakdown, and I'm sure that many people in our audience agree with what I'm about to say. And it's that, especially when you're an international student evaluating universities from abroad, you look at rankings, but you don't always know what that means, right? And so I love how QS is taking that into consideration and just making sure that students are not only seeing number one or the top 10 universities in their field, but they really understand how that aligns with their personal values. Um, that being said, with such detailed criteria, how does QS specifically assist students in tailoring their educational choices?
Yeah, no, Valeria, I love your point about, really understanding what is behind the rankings, because it's really important to recognize that any university ranking is an simplification of a really complex, multifaceted entity like a university, and of the really complex decision that you need to make as an individual for figuring out what's right for you. And, we often refer to, there's a British statistician called George Box who said, all models are wrong, but some models are useful. And, that's really the concept that, we've created a model around what does a great university look like, but we hope that it's really useful. And we know that our rankings are used very widely, and that's really confirmed by the popularity that they have around the world. We look at Google Trends and we look at the kind of attention that our rankings get, and we know that there's over 3 times as many people who are looking at the QS rankings as any other ranking around the world. So we know that they are useful, and we hope that students continue to give us feedback to ensure that we continue to make them as useful as they can be as a tool in helping with that decision. We have websites, topuniversities.com, topmba.com, and qschina.cn for those in China that give more information about those rankings and all of those dimensions of the university for students. And we had, over 90 million views of those last year, and our rankings were covered over 100,000 times in media. So we know that they're useful, but why is that the case? Well, I think they can be a really good benchmarking tool, and they can help universities to track their progress. They can help governments to track their progress. So, for example, if you just look at the sustainability piece that I talked about, a lot of universities really want to know how well are they delivering against their SDG initiatives? How well are they delivering on environmental and social and governance initiatives? And how do they stack up against their peers? And that's one of the lenses that we can provide. Really importantly, though, rankings are a great comparative tool for students to be able to understand. They can shortlist options, they can validate their choices, and they can really pinpoint, what are the excellent university in the really specific academic field that they want to go into. So our World University Rankings by subject is a great way of getting that information and identifying across 55 different academic subject areas which are the best universities, and then probing into that in more detail. So, we assess all of the areas I've talked about: sustainability, employability, research, the subject quality, career prospects, and reputation. And you can find information not just about the overall ranking, your number 262, but actually how do those universities stack up on all those dimensions and what's important to you in making that choice. And that's really one of the many tools that are at the disposal of students to think about, how do they validate their decisions, create more options, look at things they might not have looked at before as part of their research to make sure that they're choosing something that really meets their own aspirations.
Yeah, well, going off on what you were just saying about students doing their own research, do you have any advice that you would give to students interested in studying in the US?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, absolutely. The US is the top study destination around the world for international students. There's over 1 million students who came to the US in the last academic year. And because of that, because it's so appealing to students, it's also a really competitive market. So it's really important for people's applications to stand out. I'm sure everybody listening to that, really understands that. It's hard to understand sometimes the US education system. It's quite complex. There's public universities, private universities, a lot of different cities and states around, to make choices about. So actually, for this, I asked our team of counsellors in our QS Supply counselling team, and they support thousands of students and they give them really good personalised advice. And I asked them, what were their sort of top tips? And here's a few of the things that they shared. Firstly, they said, really research the program that you're applying to and make sure that you understand the very specific application requirements. Are you going to qualify? Does it make sense? Are you the right student for this program? And is this the program the right place for you? Secondly, make sure that you're really thinking about aligning the choice of your university and the program with your career. What is your aspiration? What are you looking to do? What do you want to achieve from this? And then what are the subject areas that can give you the right career prospects? And think about practical training as well. A lot of courses have a compulsory or optional practical training component, and that can really help when you're looking for a job in your post-study work. And particularly if you're looking for a job in the US, having that experience and being able to talk about that is really, really, really helpful. Thirdly, the visa. It's really important that you understand the process and navigate the process of applying for a visa in the US. And our team does this, for students all the way across that journey, and make sure that they're compiling the right documentation, that you've scheduled your visa appointment, that the waits can be quite long, and that you've got that in a timely way, and having that guidance to be ready for the interview, making sure that you're really getting through the application process. And so, if you're doing that independently, lots of people do, make sure that you've got that all ready really early on in the process. I think, financial considerations in the US are pretty important. It is an expensive place to study at university, and you can get a lot of guidance on what you need for tuition as well as living, and really figure out how that works with your budget, and making sure you understand the scholarships, the fee waiver opportunities, the work opportunities, all of that can help you to make sure that works well. And I think finally, understanding the support that the university is going to give to international students, because it's a big thing. I moved from Australia to the US, and I, thought they were probably reasonably similar cultures, but actually realized that the US was a place that was very different from anything that I had experienced before. And I know that's the same for international students coming from all over the world, and learning how to really thrive in that setting, which is one of the real benefits. That's going to take some help. And what kind of support is the school going to give to you, and how do you talk to alumni to make sure that you really understand what the experience is going to be like, and you're making that commitment. It's a big commitment, massive commitment for people, and that you've got all the information you need to do that in a really good way.
I really like that you mentioned that last point, because many people overlook the support that you will need when you move abroad. I came from Latin America. El Salvador is very influenced by American culture. So you expect to know what you're getting yourself into, but there's always little cultural nuances that you won't know until you are in that place. So that one is a very important factor to consider for anyone watching. And I love that you bring that up. And for students considering their first degree, what factors do you think that they should prioritize when using QS tools to select the right university?
Yeah, I think that it's a really exciting time, and it's a really open time. There's so many different opportunities, and that means that you need to know yourself pretty well. You need to really understand what are your goals. What kind of style of learning works for you. What are your passions? What are your values? And it's a big decision. You're going to spend maybe 4 years of your life devoted to really, building these experiences. And you've therefore got to really understand that it's going to achieve for you what you want to achieve. So, for example, you can use QS tools to really look at programs and understand how do they match with your personal goals. How do you make sure that your long-term careers, aspirations, and career objectives are going to be, met? You can use some of our data and look at our websites, and come also to some of the events that we run around the world. So we connect university students, prospective students, to university partners all around the world. This year we have 250 events in 40 countries, and we've still got another 150, I think, that are still happening from now until the end of 2024. We had, I think, about 70,000 students who were involved with those events, last year, and that's a really great chance to answer some of these questions. So, the things you want to know: what's the learning environment? Are you looking for something that's got small class sizes, or would you like to be in a really big lecture hall? Would you like to have a lot of diversity of what kind of teaching opportunities, what kind of research opportunities do you want, extracurricular activities, etc. And then really looking at how does the program fit with what it is that you're looking for. is the program matched to your academic interests, and is it the right courses, the right sort of specialist options that resonate for you? It's important to look at the reputation of the university, and that's an area where QS really can help universities and some of our resources as well, and help students. You can look at the QS rankings, you can look at the expertise of the faculty and the research and the industry partnerships to really understand what kind of support you're going to get as a student. And everybody should be really open-minded and curious as well when they're thinking about these choices, because there are very good universities that aren't featured in global rankings. So, for example, they might be a very domestically focused university and therefore not featured in global rankings, and they might be a great fit for people. So, think about a range of sources. And then I think it's some of the same things that we talked about before: understanding the student support, understanding some of those financial considerations. But we've got, for example, on our websites, career matching tools and online blogs and counselling that can help, I think, to pull some of those attributes together, and to make sure that people really understand what it is that they are getting themselves into, and whether that's right for them.
That's amazing advice. And I would expect some people in today's session being a little bit freaked out, because there's always someone that may not know what their interests are, what their passion is. To that, I would say come in with an open mind, exactly like you said. I mean, that's the most beautiful part about studying abroad. It's just being exposed to so much that you're unfamiliar with, and opening your mind and seeing the world and all the beauty that there is in it. And so there's programs that are more liberal arts focused, but if you don't know what your passion is, I would say it's easier to cross out the list what you don't like than to circle what you do want to pursue. So I don't want anyone to be discouraged if you don't have a clear idea what you want to do just yet. But that being said, what specific QS resources can master's degree candidates use to find programs that align with their career goals?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Valeria, just to pick up on your point there about being really open-minded, I think it's also important to realize that you build these experiences through your life. I never knew that I wanted to be the CEO of a company in higher education. I started off doing mathematics, and yet as I've gone through my life, and then public policy, and then working in media companies and technology companies and data analytics, you build all of these experiences that then you end up gravitating to the thing that really is your passion, that really gives you energy every day when you come to work, and finding a group of people that you're working with and a mission that what you want to spend time on. And I think that's really what the process of education does. It gives you the chance to discover, to really experiment, and to then figure out. And many of the careers that people today will be doing, the jobs that people will be doing in 10 years time, 15 years, 20 years time, maybe don't even exist today. And therefore, it's really about the experience and the skills that people can get, and understanding, how that's going to help, that is important. So back to your question on if for somebody who's looking at a master's degree, what is it that they can do to help them along that way? We do provide a lot of insight into master's programs and universities who provide master's programs. That's really the core of what we focus on and we do that holistically, but we do that by subject as well, by the mission and by program. So if people are pursuing a business-related field, we have some rankings that allow you to compare those programs. So for example, it could be you're looking for an MBA program, or an executive MBA program, or an online MBA program, or a specialist program like a master's in management or finance, business analytics, even things like supply chain management. And we have data on universities, and you can find that on our websites, around all of those dimensions. So that's top MBA, top universities, and if you're in China, for qschina.cn. And we also have the events where we are introducing and matching students with universities, our Discover and Connect events, so that you can talk to admissions officers and you can talk to alumni from those universities in your own city, and they've traveled there to come and talk to you, to come and meet with you, and to to make sure that you've really got as much information as you need about their programs, and also the chance to network with other students who are in the same position as you, who maybe are looking at studying in the US as well. And so there's really a range of ways that people can engage to find out more. I find talking to admissions teams, they're generally incredibly friendly, really outgoing, really warm people who love connecting with people. And they say always, please come and talk to us, because, we want to know who you are. We want to know how we can help you. And if you've had that personal connection, then the chance that when they see your application, they're going to remember your name, they're going to understand you and understand how you fit into their program, that's really going to help you when you go through that application process.
Absolutely. It's always great to, shoot an email if you're not able to see them in person, attend any university fairs, that you're able to. It really does make a difference. So I'm glad that you bring that up. Speaking of introducing yourself, what networking opportunities should students look for in a master's or MBA program, and how does QS assess these components?
Yeah, so we know that the network and the ability to really form connections with people that could take you then further. They could really be interesting to you through your life. It's a really big part of why people particularly go into master's programs and postgraduate education. So in our MBA rankings, we do include metrics such as the class profile, the diversity, the alumni impact, and we do in our overall university rankings as well look at alumni outcomes. And so for an MBA program specifically, you can see some of those dimensions, and it's really worth exploring as well how the MBA programs think about placement opportunities, how they think about experiential learning, what the kind of industry partnerships are that they have. And then, if possible, look at some of the alumni and the faculty and the backgrounds of people. And I think that can help you to assess, are you going to create the kind of connections with people who will be really great professional connections and personal connections, and, create that sense of community as an international student that really makes you into an international citizen in a way that gives you a lot of richness to your life in many dimensions.
Absolutely. Well, what about how does the QS ranking criteria differ when evaluating MBA programs compared to undergraduate programs?
Yeah, so we look in MBA programs at metrics that are really more specific to that business education. So we look at, for example, the class profile, which is a measure of the intake of an MBA program, and that helps to measure what some of those networking opportunities might be. And we also look at measures like the return on investment and the alumni impact. And that's really because in those MBA rankings, and that's really because when people are making that kind of decision, it's more important to them. It's often there's a significant cost associated with that, and people are looking for that real professional development. So we're really tailoring the different metrics in our rankings to the experience that most students are looking for from that kind of degree. So that's really how we think about that a little bit differently.
Okay, great. Following that, what are the emerging trends in MBA programs according to the research at QS?
Yeah, so we talk to a lot of students who've going into MBA programs and coming out of MBA programs, and also to a lot of the program leaders and deans of business schools. And some of the things that are really on the minds of those people today are around technology and the evolving business demands and operating in business in a high-tech AI-driven world. And what does that mean for somebody who's going into a business program? It means that you need to develop both those kind of technical or hard skills, as well as a lot of the really human skills that are going to allow people to adapt into a technologically very savvy environment, but also be very adaptable, as careers are going to change a lot over the next 10, 20 years. so that's important. And then I think also making sure that anybody going through those programs has got a really solid foundational knowledge of big data, of analytics, and of AI. I think that's absolutely essential for business. So when we think about some of those hard skills or technical skills, we think about things like digital competency, data analysis, project management, business development skills. They're very important and really emphasized by business schools today. But it's also equally important that some of those soft skills, human skills, teamwork, communication, problem solving, and adaptability are really important. And I think that organizations are looking for graduates who have got both that technological understanding, but also that real creativity and critical thinking. And that's going to be, increasingly important. The other thing, just the last thing as well, international experience. It's a huge asset to businesses, and really understanding in our geopolitical environment, understanding different cultures, and having experience of business and companies in other places is really important to being able to operate really effectively.
It's interesting that you mentioned the focus on more human skills, considering, with the surge of generative AI and that becoming the standard in many workplaces, there's been discussions about how it's important to recognize the human element of our work and how AI will take over the automated work, but we have to focus on what makes our work human. And so it's interesting to see the MBA programs focus on that and enhance those skills.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. And at QS, we are really helping to encourage all universities to be building those critical thinking skills and building, the sense of ethics and responsibility and the ability to really be able to, process data and be able to operate in a world that is much more AI driven than it has been previously, because I think that's really what's going to make people successful, and it will give more some of the programs in arts and humanities that really bring those critical thinking skills to the fore are going to be really prized in the creativity that can bring in graduates in the future. So I think it really provides a balance to some of the focus on STEM that we've seen over the last few years, and it'll be interesting to see how that evolves over time.
Absolutely. What about for executive education seekers? How does QS help in selecting programs that offer the best return on investment?
Yeah, so we do have executive MBA rankings, and we do look at that with providing some of that detail and online MBA programs as well that are very helpful for people who are integrating that with their work experience. We also think a lot about the kind of internships and industry connections that people can find in MBA programs, and we think that they play a really vital role in not just helping people who are thinking about a career transition, but also in helping people to really establish those connections for to help them in the role that they're playing, and that really is the way that they can really bridge that gap between some of the academic training and the practical real world business challenges. And so that's what we help to evaluate where you can have MBA programs that can help to provide that kind of experience and meet the expectations of graduates in the global environment.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the rest of the questions, I just want to announce to everybody watching that we're heading to the end of our questions. So if anyone has any questions that you want Jessica to answer you're more than welcome to leave a comment, and we'll get to yours shortly. What about what role does internships and industry connections play in master's and MBA programs? Hello.
Hi, Valeria. I think we lost you there for a sec. But I think you were asking about the role that internships and industry connections play. So, very happy to answer that question. Yeah, I think that for anybody who's doing a graduate program, or an undergraduate program, providing that kind of internship experience is something that really helps to bridge that gap between what it is that you're learning in the classroom and what it is that you need when you're going into the workforce, and provide that real world experience. And so, we really, have been facilitating, helping universities to provide some of those experiences, most recently with a program where we have students from universities around the world who are doing real-world experiences, working with companies on Sustainable Development Goal programs. It's called the Future 17 program, and we're helping people there to not just get that real-world experience, but also to be able to contribute to having an impact on Sustainable Development Goals and work in that cross-cultural setting. So I know many companies are really focused on how do we help students to provide those experiences, but that's definitely an area where we're expanding out what we're doing at QS to help students around the world as well.
That's amazing. Going back to your advice for students, what advice does QS have for students transitioning from academics to their early careers?
Yes. So I think that, it's a really crucial stage when you're thinking about moving from university into that first part of your career. And we have for many years surveyed employers around the world, and we have a skills gap report that you could find on qs.com on our corporate website. And we also have a service called One Mentor, which provides millions of data points on careers and what the companies who are hiring for jobs in different countries are looking for today. And we're really using that to those high growth jobs and the required skills for success to really inform this question. Now, there's a lot of research on this topic of, how do you make sure that universities are providing the right skills for what graduates need in the workforce. So a recent report from McKinsey & Company showed that 87% of companies know that they have a skills gap. And the World Economic Forum has said that they believe that 44% of the skills that workers have today will be disrupted in the next 5 years. And if you think about that, almost half of the skills that you have acquired now, will need to change. You'll need to be reskilling. You'll need to be thinking about new skills. It's really important as a student. I mean, that's a bit of a scary thing to find out, right?
Yep.
So it's really important as a student to think about what can you do to make sure that you're acquiring the right skills that are going to help you, and really be sustainable. And I think it's back to what we talked about, prioritizing not just the technical skills, but also really prioritizing those human skills, because they're really sought after by employers. And there are so many micro-credentials that can help, that are available to students, that are available to lifelong learners, and that are really a complement to the academic experience and, a complement to the kind of personal skills. So I think that, there's a lot of different ways that students can find those skills. But I think the things to focus on are, firstly, think about your career and exploring your career. It's not that you arrive in a career, it's that you evolve into a career, and really explore different career paths and industries. Think about what's the right fit for your skills and for your interests and for your value and the values that you have. Then think about, the networks that you're going to build. And I think that's a really important part. How do you nurture the personal and the professional relationships that you have in the areas that you're really interested in, and whether that's in, going to some of the industry events, networking within your own organization, connecting with potential employers and mentors, and I'm amazed actually at sometimes when people send a personal letter and say, I'm really interested in your organization, and sometimes it's a great fit, and you realize actually that, just that reach out to employers and creating that network and being proactive really can help, to create, opportunities. And I think we think about it's also really about evolving. You've got to keep on thinking about how do you enhance your skills, and all of us do. All of us every day are thinking, what could I be better at, and what do I do to get that experience, and how can I continuously develop? And that might be through an internship, it might be through volunteering, it might be through getting another certification, or it could be just talking to your colleagues and understanding, what feedback you can get that can help you, as you evolve. And I think being really adaptable is important, being open to change. You never know what you're going to be doing in 5 years' time, and really embracing the opportunities and being open-minded about that. It might deviate from your initial career plan, but actually, I think, careers are an adventure that we pursue, through our lives. And that means, making sure that you understand yourself and you've really thought about your personal brand. You've thought about, how you can share the experience you've had. And that includes, on social media platforms and your online community. And it's really good to be able to help to communicate what you're all about to a wider group. And then ask for help, ask for guidance, ask for advice. Everybody loves to be asked for advice. And whether that's, alumni, it's people who in the company you work for or somewhere else, it's, career advisors, university teams, so many people are willing to help if you ask. And I think, there's so many different sources of support as you're kind of navigating that career journey.
Yeah, and everything goes back to the studying abroad. I mean, that's such a unique experience by itself that it really helps you enhance most of the skills that you're talking about, interpersonal skills, communication, emotional intelligence, adaptability. I always say that the true magic of studying abroad is being able to walk into any room and make it your own because of how adaptable you become, how you learn to pick up the little cultural nuances that someone that might have never left the country might not be able to pick up as easily as you. And so that experience by itself will give you a huge advantage, in my opinion, in the workforce. But it's interesting to see how it's evolving, and everything that you said is truly valuable, even for me that I'm a few years out of college. So thank you for that advice. And finally, our final question is, what trends have you noticed in global education, especially in light of recent global challenges?
Yes, well, I love that question because, we think a lot about, how is higher education evolving and how does it need to evolve? And I think that, the last few years, there's been a lot of changes in so many ways. And, I think one of the things that we've seen in the higher education space is that it's a very positive message, sort of for me and for everybody at QS. We've seen that there's a real focus on making sure that there's a really equitable relationship between students and universities in the global north and in the global south, and that really, the rise of the quality of education in many countries around the world. So, for example, in India has really meant that, people have far more choices these days, and the flow of students that has come, from around the world has really changed over the last couple of years. And I think we'll see that will continue to change, and really the collaboration and partnerships that students can benefit from between universities across countries will mean that over time, the traditional choice that students in growing up in maybe India or Nigeria have felt, well, okay, I've got to go and get my education in another part of the world. Actually, I think that's a much more diverse spectrum now, and we've really seen that change over time. So promoting that kind of diversity, the cross-cultural understanding, and facilitating, building the quality of education in countries around the world. I think, that's sort of one of the changes that is really important. Secondly, I think there's quite a lot of geopolitical instability, and there's an uncertainty for international students as a result of that. There are general elections in more than 50 countries this year, and that's causing some flux in global education. I think that for QS, our mission is fostering international education and the really positive impact that international students can have on the study destinations. International students have huge positive economic impact in the countries that they go to. And in an election year with some of the geopolitical uncertainty, that is not always recognized. And I think, for example, students coming to the US, we found that one study found that 65 of the current world leaders all around the world have been educated in the US. So the soft power that comes to the US from being a recipient of all of those really well qualified, motivated, and really inspiring international students, that's really strong. International education will continue to grow. We do see some of those sort of short-term impacts on that with some of the geopolitical uncertainty. I think, apart from that, we've talked about the impact of AI on education and the future of work. I think that's a very important factor, but that's leading to a lot more digitization of higher education, and that really accelerated in the pandemic. But, hybrid courses, online instruction combined with in-person experiences is now much more of a norm. And I think lastly then, in the pandemic, what we saw was that supporting students and their well-being and staff and the well-being of staff was just much more important than the importance of mental health, the importance of the resources that are needed there to support the individual for really holistically to be able to benefit from the learning experience, was really, really well understood. And I think that has meant that universities are much more focused on fostering diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in global education, and making sure that they're supporting underrepresented in groups, making it an inclusive learning environment, and then making sure that really supporting students' wellness and mental health is really important. And then making sure that we're building the skills that students need for a really rapidly evolving world. And there's a lot of changes there with things like entrepreneurship and innovation and apprenticeship courses and other things that really are emphasizing skills-based education. I think that will continue. And I think we've got a very evolving world with a lot of challenges that we're facing, and international students are a really big part of being able to provide some of the insight that we're going to need to solve some of the challenges that we're seeing around the world. So we're really pleased to be able to support international education.
Well, all of that was extremely insightful, Jessica. I am so glad that we had this conversation today, and I'm sure that our audience today will take away so many things from our conversation. But that was the end of our questions. Now we'll be moving on to the audience questions. First of all, we have Gabriel. So Gabriel is asking, do you have any advice for international students who know that they want a graduate degree, but they don't know what they want to study yet?
Well, I think that, there it's looking at multiple options and really talking to people and, doing the research and making sure that you're understanding yourself, you're really understanding your aspirations, and then really engage with the universities and the courses. Understand what did the alumni go on to do from the courses that they graduated from? What kind of skills did they gain, and how might that help you, in what you're doing? So I think, coming to the higher education fairs, to the events, Connect and Discover events is a really good way to do that, because you can talk to, dozens of universities in one afternoon, in a couple of hours, and really get a sense for what then start to narrow down those choices, and then figure out how you're going to help with that decision. But I think there are many people in the same position, and many people who are willing to start to help you to make that decision. So engage as much as you can.
Oh, thank you for your thoughtful response. I really encourage anyone who's watching right now to leave your questions. We have a little bit more time, so if you have something they really want to ask Jessica, please put the comment in the chat. But in the meantime, I really wanted to ask you if you have any other advice or anything else that you want to add to this conversation before we end.
Yes, no, I can see we had a question from somebody who wanted to know about how do we really crack the visa interview. And I think the point there is really being prepared. It's about just making sure that you have got the right help and assistance. You've got, all of your documentation. You've really, understood what you need to do. And there are lots of places to get that kind of support and help. QS helps students with those things, and many other organizations do as well. So again, I think that's really, I guess, the message that we've had out of this session. As an international student, you're joining a community of millions of people who've really benefited from that cross-cultural experience, and who therefore are willing to and would like to be able to share their experiences with others. And so becoming part of that community of people who've benefited from international education, I think is a great thing to do. And as you can see, there are people who've then come to work in companies and to join organizations that are doing that. And you've got others who are alumni of many of those institutions, and there's a lot of resources that you can speak to.
Well, thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing such valuable insights with us today. It's clear that your passion for education and your dedication to QS not only shapes the way that the organization operates, but also positively impacts students worldwide. So thank you. Your thoughts on the dynamic landscape of global education, coupled with practical advice for our audience, are incredibly empowering. To everyone tuned in, thank you for joining us from all the corners of the globe. It's your enthusiasm and eagerness that makes these sessions so rewarding, so thank you. And we hope you found the discussion enlightening and that it helps you make informed decisions about your educational future. Please remember that our website is continually updated with helpful resources, upcoming events, and the latest on higher education opportunities. Whether you're just beginning your journey or seeking to further your career, Study in the USA is here to support you in every step of the way. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing all of you in our next live event. Keep reaching your dreams with courage and conviction. So